Morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Mike's MMA Picks Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown Card, brought to you by MMA Oddsbreaker as well as BetDSI. We got a great show for you today, and we're here. UFC 247 headed to Texas. We've got Dominic Reyes taking on Jon Jones. We have 12 fights. Thank goodness for Giles-Krause coming in to save the day. 12 fights. We have inside the distance odds for 11 of them. 5 of the 11 fights are expected to end inside the distance. So 12 fights total. First fight on the card, let's take a look here. We've got Austin Lingo taking on Lewis-Latifi. This fight takes place at 145 pounds. Both of these fighters are LFA alum. And you look at Austin Lingo, first thing that jumps out at us is undefeated fighter, fighting out of a tremendous camp in Fortis MMA. Coming in at 8,900 in DraftKings, a -213 favorite over at BetDSI. Taking on Zalal, who's coming at 7,300, plus 183 underdog. Austin Lingo came in as he opened up as a -500 favorite. Huge favorite, been bet down significantly. Zalal, a well-rounded fighter. That's one of the reasons Giles-Krause was here, Factory X fighter. Zalal, solid footwork, very versatile striker, possesses a decent ground game. One thing that I'm concerned about, though, is you look at Zalal's fights, and he's lost anytime a fight's gone to a decision. He's also been overwhelmed at times. He's been able to right the ship, but he's been overwhelmed at times, and there's a high likelihood here that he gets overwhelmed by Austin Lingo, and that's the way I see the fight playing out. Austin Lingo, very heavy hands. He's been able to get submissions in the past off of his back against lower tier opponents, but this kid, 5 finishes on his record. He was KO'd as an amateur, so that's something to watch out for, but heck of a curtain jerker here. We've got Austin Lingo going to be the pick. Next up, we have 135-pound matchup between Andre Ewell taking on Jonathan Martinez. Jonathan Martinez coming in Plainview, Texas. We have a lot of Texans on this card, by the way. We've got 8 folks who hail out of Texas here. So Jonathan Martinez, 7,800, slight underdog at plus 108, taking on Andre Ewell, who is coming in at 8,400, -128 favorite. Significant reach advantage in this spot. We've got Ewell having a 5.5-inch reach advantage. By the way, in the previous matchup, Zalal also has a significant reach advantage over Lingo, though I don't think that's going to come into play. That last fight is expected to end inside the distance, and I think we're going to see a knockout in that fight. So Ewell came onto the scene. What can you say? This fighter, he's got solid straight strikes down the pipe. Doesn't have a get-up game that we've seen. We've seen Nathaniel Wood work him over pretty well. Also, Renan Barão was having some big-time success on Ewell early. The win over Anderson Dos Santos, I don't put a lot of stock into that fight. He stuck to his game plan. You're going to be fighting a Jonathan Martinez here, who's a one word I like to describe him is explosive. Concern of mine for Jonathan Martinez, though, is his debut, he took on Andre Sukumta, and Sukumta basically big brothered Martinez in that matchup. Though Ewell isn't a very physical fighter, so I'm not worried about Martinez being physically overwhelmed in this spot. Martinez is going to have to get inside, and we've seen he's been able to do that, landing big knees, and he's a versatile striker. 11-2 record, coming in off of an impressive win over Pingwan Liu, as well as Waluigi Burin. In this fight, I suspect it is going to go the distance. I think that Jonathan Martinez is going to be the one shining at specific critical moments of this fight to win rounds. And I see a unanimous decision victory for the underdog Jonathan Martinez. Ewell just he's got some solid strengths. He's an exciting fighter when people bring the fight to him. He can counter, and I think he's going to run into a more versatile Martinez. All right, so next up, we've got another fighter here with a significant reach advantage. We've got Domingo Pilarte taking on Journey-Newson. Journey-Newson looked solid in his fight as a huge underdog against Ricardo Ramos. Newson, $8,000 in DraftKings, plus 107. Underdog right now. He was a very short notice replacement against Ramos last time out. Pilarte, we've seen him on the Contender Series, 8,200 in DraftKings, minus 127 favorite. Has a great ground game. We saw him put Vince Morales out. I have concerns about Pilarte's lack of head movement. One thing, when you notice Newson fight, even in the opening few seconds, you can tell he's a boxer. He's getting his head off the center line. He's getting in and out of the pocket. But he wasn't able to do well with range. That was something that, with a boxing background, I was a little shocked how he wasn't able to close distance and land in bunches on Ramos. But that's maybe a testament to Ricardo Ramos there. Pilarte, though, very aggressive fighter, willing to take one to give one. Also, this guy looks like he cuts a lot of weight. He comes in completely shredded at weigh-ins, typically sweating on the scales. Both guys made weight here. I like Newson. I like Newson to pull this one out. This fight is expected to go to a decision at minus 160. Newson does have a jiu-jitsu background. You watch him on his back. He was able to scramble out of positions against Ricardo Ramos. I suspect he'll be able to fend off Pilarte here. And again, this is the first time we've seen Newson come in on a full camp. And I think that's going to be a difference maker here. He's a tiny guy, but packs a big punch. And I think that's how this fight's going to end. I think we're going to have Newson win this fight inside the distance, although this fight is expected to go to a decision at minus 160. So get two underdogs in there so far. Next up, we have a very hotly debated 135-pound matchup between Mario Bautista against Giles-Krause. Giles-Krause coming in as the 8,600 price tag fighter and minus 135 underdog, taking on Mario Bautista, who is a high volume fighter, 7,600 plus 115 at the betting window for Bautista. Initially, when Bautista came into the UFC, I was looking at his amateur record, and the guys he were fighting were complete cans. But then came in, showed a very explosive skill set, taking on Corey Sandhagen, was able to take Corey Sandhagen down, dump him on his head, got reversed, ended up getting caught in a submission, but you're looking at a very, very aggressive fighter in Mr. Mario Bautista, fighting out of the MMA lab. Now, Giles-Krause, you've got a wrestler with very heavy hands and a tremendous team behind him. This is the second fighter from Fortis MMA, and a lot needs to be said about the work that Fortis MMA does to get their fighters prepared. Concern of mine, you look at Giles-Krause, his last fight against Mr. Cole Smith. That was there were a bunch of concerning moments in that fight. Giles-Krause has a tendency to gas in his fights. He also, you can tell, he's built like a fire hydrant in there. We'll talk about another fire hydrant later in the card with Latifi. But Johns, something that he said in one of the interviews, he realizes that Bautista is a very aggressive fighter, and he thinks that that's going to play into his strengths, which are the wrestling game, being able to catch fighters off guard, either throwing heavy strikes or getting the takedown. Question is, what is he going to do with the takedown? Because as we saw in the Sandhagen fight and also in Bautista's last fight, if you don't put Bautista away, he's gonna keep coming. And initially, I was considering making a play on Giles-Krause. Bautista, I understand why folks are going to roster him and also pick him to win. Though, you look at a matchup for Giles-Krause, the Cole Smith and the Mario Bautista matchup, there's a stark contrast between the two. They present very different skill sets, and in this situation, I feel that Giles-Krause is going to be the more effective striker. He's going to be able to do more with his power punches, and he's going to be able to land takedowns at critical moments of the fight. And I expect him to win a closely fought decision at home. There were times in the Cole Smith fight where it seemed like he wasn't processing what coach was telling him to do. He was a few seconds behind in processing and getting out of tough spots. In this fight, we're not going to have to worry about that against the cage. So this is a different fight. And I understand why folks are on Bautista. I think this should be a very closely lined fight, but I'm going to be picking Giles-Krause to win. And I also think, as far as DraftKings goes, sneaky play, maybe Giles-Krause because of his ability to land those very heavy strikes, although he's not going to be putting up volume. Just be aware. Next up, we have the third and final Fortis MMA fighter on the card. By the way, a stack of Fortis MMA fighters may be in play here. You look at their price tags. Keep an eye out for that. Giles-Krause, we've got Austin Lingo, and then we've got Alex Morono. Alex Morono, 9,100 in DraftKings, minus 350 favorite. This is a fight that is not expected to go to a decision against Kalen Williams. Kalen Williams hasn't fought great competition. 9-1 record, 7,100 plus 285 underdog. This is Alex Morono is another fighter who I consider to be a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type fighter. We saw what happened against Nico Price at the end of a round. He crapped the bed against Jordan Mein in the past, and it could potentially be a dangerous spot as a minus 350 favorite. Though one thing that needs to be brought to attention is Alex Morono's ground game. This is a guy who came in, wanted to lose weight. I've heard so many stories of guys wanting to lose weight and getting into mixed martial arts. So Morono came in, and he's slowly been developing a striking game, We've seen what he's done to fighters like Joshua Berkman, etc. But those fighters are long gone. Max Griffin, Zach Otto, Kenan Song. So Morono's coming in here with a lot of steam. 17-5 record. Williams 9-1 record. He's going to be Williams, very aggressive fighter. I think Williams is going to put himself in a bad spot here, and ended up getting submitted. That's the way I see this playing out. So give me Alex Morono by submission victory. Next up, we have women's 125-pound division. Andrea Lee, 9,200, minus 300 favorite. The odds on her fight have dropped a little bit. Taking on a tough as nails, Lauren Murphy, $7,000 in DraftKings, plus 240 underdog. Lauren Murphy, 11-4 record. Last time out, we saw her get a TKO victory over Barella, and Barella looked like she didn't want to be there in that fight. Andrea Lee doesn't have any quit in her. You look at Murphy. Murphy doesn't have any submission victories on her resume. Tough to stop Murphy. She was fighting out of the MMA lab and has moved to Texas. I'm interested to see if the crowd, who there's more of a pop for in the crowd, Andrea Lee or Lauren Murphy. I suspect it's going to be KGB. So Andrea Lee, she let us down last time out, taking on Calderwood. Thought she had a few advantages headed into that fight, and we were proved wrong. The De La Rosa fight, we saw that Andrea Lee can be taken down, and we haven't seen her controlled, though. That's a key. Andrea Lee, good at scrambling to her feet, and what I think is going to be a difference in this fight is the pace and the volume of Andrea Lee, and also the way that affects the judging. If you're looking to roster fighters and also wager on fighters, the something to look for is pace and volume, and in this, of course, wrestling ability too. And Andrea Lee has that as well. We've seen Lauren Murphy; she can be taken down rather easily in spots. Problem with Lauren Murphy though is it's tough to put her away. She's a dog in there, and I'm going to be picking Andrea Lee to win this fight by decision. Excellent. So here we go. Next up, we have this is the James Krause moment here. James Krause gaining a lot of fans here, stepping in on short notice in enemy territory to take on Trevin Giles. Mr. Krause is familiar with Trevin Giles from an opponent, Zach Cummings. We saw Trevin Giles lose to Zach Cummings, and guess who trained Zach Cummings for that bout? None other than Mr. James Krause. James Krause fighting out of Glory MMA, coming in at 8,100 in DraftKings. Now, some books don't have odds yet on the Krause-Giles fight, but there are some that do. Minus 150 is the number for Mr. Krause. Giles can be had for plus 110. Giles 8,500 in DraftKings. So there's a price discrepancy here. I suspect we'll see rather high ownership for those who are able to edit their lineups and get James Krause in there. Here's the story, folks. So James Krause has fought at 155 pounds before. We know him his last few fights. He's fought at 170 pounds, welterweight. He's coming in on 1 day notice, taking on Trevin Giles, who's a middleweight, and Krause weighed in at 183 pounds. This is one of the reasons I like doing this breakdown on the day of the fights, because we got to see weigh-ins. And you watch Krause in his last fight. He does well when he has a full camp. He stays in shape. He was prepping Grant Dawson for his matchup against Chad Skelly. It's a shame that fight went out the window. But in this spot, Krause got a great jiu-jitsu game, fight IQ through the roof. And I think this is going to be a very competitive matchup. I see Krause, though, being someone who comes into enemy territory and steals the show here. Some folks may be worried about his gas tank. This guy, Krause, takes good care of himself and seems to always be in shape. He's been to step up like this on this type of short notice. We haven't seen this in a long, long time. I wish other athletic commissions were able to do it. Makes you wonder, though, as far as not necessarily for Krause's sake, but for other fighters who come in, as far as USADA, I wonder how they handle that. So in this spot, though, you've got James Krause, who mopped the floor with Warlley Alves and then disposed of Sergio Moraes with ease. I think there is some recency bias built into this line. You know, Trevin Giles has a great boxing game. Police officer, not a full-time fighter. He has deficiencies on the ground, and we've seen him caught in the past. In this spot, though, I think we're going to see Giles get taken down, and it should be interesting to see how much of a factor the weight plays. Jesse Taylor was able to work Krause over on the ground. This spot, though, that isn't Giles' strong suit, and I think we're going to see Krause come out in this spot and win by either decision or finish. I'm not going to throw a submission off the radar. I think that's a possibility in this spot. But give me James Krause to win this fight. Next up, we have a fight where the odds have been closing. We've got Derek Lewis taking on Ilir-Latifi. This fight is taking place at heavyweight. Ilir-Latifi, 7,200 in DraftKings, one of the lowest priced fighters. He's coming in at plus 185 right now. $9,000 gets you Mr. Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, minus 225 favorite. We saw, last time out, Ivanov, that was a very close fight. Losses to JDS, lost to Cormier, was losing the fight to Volkov until that last barrage ended up putting Volkov out. Lewis received by far the biggest pop when it came to weigh-ins. Houston loves this guy. He's done a lot for the community out there, but that doesn't win you fights. This fight isn't expected to go to a decision at minus 260. Latifi, 7 losses, 14-7 record, and he's fought at light heavyweight. I understand some of the love for Latifi because he does possess a wrestling game, and Lewis has been taken down, but the problem is holding Lewis down. He's been able to get back up in many of his fights, unless he fights somebody like Daniel Cormier. A couple of things to note. Last time out, we saw Latifi get demolished, slaughtered by Volkan Ozdemir. He came into that fight a few months prior to it, had to pull out with a back injury. 3 months later, came in, got completely annihilated. Before that, was overwhelmed by Corey Anderson. He has gas tank problems. Latifi does. We know Black Beast has gas tank problems as well. I have concerns with Latifi's ability to take heavy strikes. I think we're going to see Derek Lewis. He could potentially be put in some bad spots, but I see him turning the tide here and just being too much for Latifi in this spot. Lewis also, this is his second fight back from a complete ACL repair, and I think we're going to see a revitalized Derek Lewis get back to his winning ways, and I'm going to pick Derek Lewis to win by knockout. Next up, we've got a intriguing matchup between 245-pound fighters. We've got Mirsad Bektic-Ige taking on Dan Ige. Bektic, 8,300 in DraftKings, minus 127 favorite. Ige 7,900 plus 107 underdog. One thing I didn't mention about the previous fight was the significant reach advantage for Derek Lewis. I think that may be a factor. We know through, as you see on the scale, Latifi, much shorter opponent, though very stocky. But I think Lewis, although he likes to swing and bang, he's going to be in Latifi's range often. So Ige is a dog. He's a gamer, not the prettiest fighter when it comes to technique, but a lot of Hawaiians who love to scrap. This guy also has a fighting spirit, and he has a solid jiu-jitsu game. And although Bektic is coming in with a 13-2 record, everyone remembers the way he took one of the biggest losses in UFC history, and to overwhelm someone and then get taken out, and then switch camps and go to TriStar. Concerning to me. I also have concerns. Although Bektic is the far superior athlete, I believe he possesses. He's the stronger fighter. He's the better striker. He has a better wrestling game. You're dealing with a fighter who has changed his training habits significantly. He left ATT and now is looking to train less and train more efficient because he was being injured often. He was overwhelmed and knocked off balance by a stiff jab from Josh Emmett. I understand why the line is closing in this spot for Ige. A lot of folks are on him. I understand that. This, to me, we watched Jared Cannonier come in and win as a dog in his last fight overseas, and this fight for me has a similar feel to it. I've told myself to avoid a fight like this is a good idea, but in a way, we also need to realize that there are anomalies in cases like this, and you got to wonder: is Bektic, his failures, is it due to a weak chin? Is it due to him not having confidence in himself? I think it's a combination of a few different things, but I have to pick Bektic to win this fight because I believe he has the superior skill set, and he's got a great coach behind him. You can't rule out the dog in Dan Ige, though. So give me Mirsad Bektic to win this fight by decision. This fight, you look at the odds for it to go to a decision, minus 150 currently. The win over Ricardo Lamas was it was nice to see Bektic get back on track. It's crazy. This guy now is 28 years old. He's been in the UFC since 2014, and we haven't seen much progression from him. But still, I think that he's the much better athlete, and that there's going to be a huge difference in quickness here. And I'm interested to see when this fight gets into deep waters how Bektic is going to respond, because we know that Dan Ige is still going to be there, and he's going to be bringing the fight. So give me Bektic to win by decision. Next up, we've got Juan Adams taking on Justin Tafa. Heavyweight fight. Juan Adams 5-2. Hear a lot about Juan Adams' wrestling credentials, but I haven't been impressed with his performances inside the octagon. You look at that De La Rocha fight. Red flags, folks. 8,800 for Juan Adams, minus 250 favorite. Then on the other side of the fight, you've got Justin Tafa, 7,400 in DraftKings, plus 210 underdog. Only 26 years of age, 3-1 record. So Tafa's still very green. Has a brother who fights in Glory, and we've seen through his regional tape that he has some heavy hands. The problem is, if he gets taken down, Tafa, he may not be getting back up. And in his last fight against Jorgen De Castro, the lights went out on the grandest stage in front of a huge crowd, home crowd. This fight isn't expected to go to a decision at minus 300. It's an easy fight to break down, but it's a high volatility fight. So is Juan Adams going to get the takedown and hold Tafa there and grind him out, finish him with ground and pound, or is Tafa going to come in here and put Adams' lights out? Odds suggest that Tafa's going to get grinded out, and I think there are much better spots to look at on this card than Juan Adams. But from a DraftKings perspective, you're going to want a piece of or some shares of this fight, because Adams, he has a path to victory here. Problem is, though, Adams, you look at the way he's handled himself in the lead up to fights. You look at what you want out of a professional fighter, the way they carry themselves and conduct their business, and there are some major red flags. He has the frame of a heavyweight, and that's about it. And I'm going to be picking Adams here, but proceed with caution, folks. Next up, co-main event of the evening. We've got Bektic-Ige taking on Valentina Shevchenko. Shevchenko, 9,500, highest priced fighter on the card. Minus 1,200 favorite. You heard that right, folks. 31 years old, both of these fighters. Chookagian, 13-2 record. Now, Shevchenko comes in 18-3 record. You look at the only losses she's had. She's lost to some great competition. I had her winning one of the Nunes fights. I'll be avoiding this fight as far as making any plays. Chookagian, though, at 6,700 plus 800 at the betting window, you got to wonder who's going to be at the controls for Fight Metric, because if Chookagian starts throwing strikes at the air, they may get counted. We have no idea how Fight Metric is going to handle the scoring from card to card when it comes to significant strikes. And this could be a dangerous spot. But Valentina Shevchenko, 9,500. Look at the fighters that are priced below her here, and there are a number of them who could potentially be getting a finish here. Again, playing with fire with Fight Metric. Shevchenko has a solid ground game. We know Chookagian has a solid ground game, but we don't see it very often. She trains in New York City with Renzo Gracie, and I want to see what happens when this fight hits the ground. I hope this fight hits the ground. Shevchenko, very strong fighter. Strong on her feet, lightning quick. Chookagian, too upright for my liking. Against a fighter like Shevchenko, she's going to need to get her head off the center line and show some striking defense. I'm concerned. She's used her length in the past to her advantage, and I think in this spot that's not going to be there. So give me Shevchenko to win this fight, and I'm going to give Shevchenko to win by decision here. That's going to be the pick. Next up, main event of the evening. We've got Jon Jones taking on Dominick Reyes, light heavyweight. Dominick Reyes, 6,800 plus 385 at the betting window. Jon Jones, 9,400 minus 510. Interesting matchup. A lot of folks have already written off Dominick Reyes in this spot. Reyes, southpaw who is lanky and looks like he would have a reach advantage in a spot like this. But then you go to the the tails of the tape, and you see that Jon Jones has a 7.5-inch reach advantage. A lot of people have been getting on Reyes' case for wanting to talk to the referees about the eye pokes. I think that it's actually a smart idea to do that. And if Dominic Reyes is to have any success in this fight, it has to happen early. He's going to have to walk into the fire. He may get taken down in the process. He may get submitted in the process. But I'm interested to see what happens when this fight hits the ground. I have concerns that once Reyes gets taken down, Mr. Jones may have a lot of success in Reyes' guard. Joe Daddy Stevenson has done a lot of work with Reyes through the years, and he's actually shown a decent ground game. But we saw Ozdemir take Reyes down, and I'm actually a little concerned that Reyes has been taking a lot of heat in the lead up to this matchup. His answers to some of the questions may be off-putting to some. I've known Dom Reyes through the years, actually before he began his mixed martial arts career, and is a very solid individual. Does a lot of work for the community, and he is a gamer. And I think folks are underestimating him in this spot. I'm not going to come out and pick Reyes to win this fight, but I will say that the first couple of rounds in this fight, that Dom Reyes could potentially surprise a lot of people with that left hand and with his head kicks here. And also his kicks, his calf kicks. I think that is going to be in play in this fight. We've heard folks for many years say that Jon Jones has twig legs. Thiago Santos attempted it and blew out his legs in the process, trying to take Jon Jones's legs out. And in this spot, though, Jon Jones, incredibly elusive fighter. That's going to be put to the test in this spot. I want to see who takes the center of the octagon if Dom Reyes backs up. He does have a great left-hand counter. I want to see. There are a number of variables in this spot. If you are looking at a play here, this fight is not expected to go to a decision at -175. You can look at Jones inside the distance. A wild line was Reyes by submission +3,500. But I will be staying away from this fight. I'll be picking Jones to win inside the distance. Here's the thing. When you're looking to make certain plays, you have a 25-1 record, a 25-1 record fighter, and that one loss is obviously disputable due to the Matt Hamill elbow. So how can you bank on somebody coming out and taking their first loss in this spot? It's going to happen at some point. Inevitably, all good things come to an end someday. We'll see if Jones is able to ride off into the sunset with an undefeated record. But we're going to be picking Jones inside the distance here. And I would like to see Dom Reyes win this fight, but you just can't pick Reyes to win in this spot yet. Here's the other thing. The football career of Dom Reyes, we've seen him compete under the bright lights, but this is a totally different animal against Jon Jones. So great fight. Excited to see Jones back in action, main event. Want to thank everybody for supporting the cause here at MMA Oddsbreaker as well as BetDSI. And you can follow me at MikesMMAPicks on Twitter. You can follow me over at BetMMA.tips as well as CapperTech. We've got a few things planned in the near future, so keep your eyes out for some big news coming up. Want to wish everybody the best of luck this evening in both DraftKings and with their plays. Next week, we've got an amazing card at UFC Rio Rancho. I've been really looking forward to that spot. So I want to wish everybody a great Saturday, and go get what's yours, my friends. Go get what's yours.